بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله العظيم من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه وخليله أدى الأمانة وبلغ الرسالة ونصح للأمة وكشف الغمة وتركنا على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك فعليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين اللهم اجعلنا منهم ومن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين. وأوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله عز وجل وقد أمرنا بالحق وقال تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال تعالى يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. وقال تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. ثم أما بعد. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We declare His perfection in our own imperfections. We bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped or unconditionally obeyed except for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His final messenger. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His peace and blessings upon him, his family, his companions, and those that follow until the day of judgment. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst them. Allahumma ameen. Dear brothers and sisters, it would be ignorant of me to ignore, or I would be disconnected to ignore obviously what's been in the news for the last 24 hours, which was the death of a human rights icon like Nelson Mandela. But my khutbah is not going to be about Nelson Mandela. My khutbah is going to be about something greater than that, and something that I think all of us need to pay attention to and need to understand. And that is that what would motivate a person, what would motivate a human being to stand up for the rights of other individuals, to offer themselves selflessly for the sake of the cause of an oppressed people, for the plight of an oppressed people, and not have iman. Because obviously we look throughout history and sometimes we find that there are people that stand up for human rights despite not being Muslims. So what is it that would make a person stand up for those things in the first place if they were not Muslims? And there is no doubt that those qualities are praiseworthy qualities. And the answer to that is very simple. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human beings as good people in the first place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed within us a natural inclination, al-fitra, a natural inclination, not only to Him, but to all that is good, to all that is pleasing to Him. And subhanAllah, we find particularly one of the most profound explanations of the fitrah, of this natural inclination that we have, that I've ever read, was the one by Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah. Because he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within us the inclination towards, number one, Him, being the worship of Allah, tawheed. That is the greatest sign. And according to the creed of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, there is no such thing as a true atheist. We don't believe that they exist. We don't believe that there's a person who really believes in no God. And this is something that, that we see every single day in our lives. That these people who deny God, who turn away from the oneness of God, who in fact deny the existence of a God, are not people with sakina, are not people with tranquility. When's the last time you met a humble atheist that wasn't confrontational? They have no sakina, no tranquility in their lives, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. Whoever turns away from my remembrance has a constricting, suffocating life. He has no tranquility, no peace of mind, no sense of satisfaction or being content with what they have, because they choose to deny that which they know is true. And subhanAllah, there was an experiment that particularly interested me, and sometimes, unfortunately, as Muslims, we look towards science to confirm what's already in the Quran and the Sunnah. And there was an experiment at Princeton University by Dr. Edward Young, where he ran a lie detector test on 30 atheists. The question was, do you believe in God? And all 30 of them said no, and all 30 of them failed the test. 30 atheists that are asked, do you believe in God? And say no, and they failed the test. And he made a very profound statement in his studies. He said, no one argues with someone that they don't believe exists. You're angry with God. You might have issues, and you might think that by denying this, that it would give you happiness in life, and that you would have absolute freedom to do what you want. But what we see is that freedom that doesn't entail submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually brings about misery, contrary to what people think. Because an atheist is 213% more likely to commit suicide than a person who believes in a religion. They have no answers to anything in life. Do what you want, fine. Party without any restrictions, but at the same time, there is something inside of you, and you're troubled when you deny that. And instead of trying to come to peace with certain things, that you faced in your life and certain difficulties, you just deny that there's a creator. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created everyone to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's inside of us. We know that that power exists. Scientifically, you can read articles on a God spot that's inside of us, a particular part of the brain that demonstrates more activity when God is mentioned. Go through all the studies, but at the end of the day, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already told you that He created you to believe in Him. And that a person is troubled when he turns away from acknowledging that oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what's more interesting than that is that he added on top of that, he said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also added two components to the fitrah. Not just belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but every single human being in his nature has a sense of compassion and justice. Every single person. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only calls us to that which is inside of us. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ. Allah commands you with justice and compassion because it's already inside of you. You're born with that. That's not something that you learn or that you acquire. You're born with a sense of mercy and compassion. You're born with a sense of justice. And subhanAllah, it was just this year, and I was in New Jersey, and there's a brother, a very good friend of mine who's a pediatrician, who sent me a New York Times article. And it was a study that was done this year where they actually tested children, infants, to see if justice and compassion is something that's taught or it's something that you're born with. So they actually took these kids and they would show them cartoons. And if you grow up on cartoons, you see that there's always a bad guy and a good guy, right? Or a bad cat and a good rat. Whatever it is, but there's always someone who's bad and someone who's good. And that these kids actually had a faster heartbeat and were actually troubled whenever they saw that justice was not being served, even in a cartoon. Allah created us that way. So you ask yourself, well, how is it then that we have, murderers and we have the Bashar al-Assads and the Sisis in this world then, if we're created with compassion and justice? How is it that those people even exist? And the answer to that is very simple, that there's a great difference between nature and nurture. People nurture hatred. They nurture injustice. They become delusional. There's a lot of truth to that statement that sometimes you tell a lie so much that you actually start to believe your own lie. And people literally create for themselves, this bubble where they nurture hatred, they nurture injustice, they nurture dhulm, they become merciless people. But at the same time, they will remain troubled because it's still there. It might be hanging on, it might be just a hair, but it's still there. There's still some level of compassion, some level of justice, whether a person likes it or not, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you that way. And when we look at the world, we see that there are human beings that are not Muslims. And you know what? One of the biggest issues with Muslims is that we start seeing the world as black and white. We are Muslims and they are kuffar. They're all disbelievers and they're all the same. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said they're not the same. Laysu sawa. They're not the same. No two human beings in the world are the same. Don't sit there and tell me that they're all the same. They're not all the same. Hitler is not like Nelson Mandela. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us that in the Quran. And when we start seeing the world in black and white, we fail to recognize and acknowledge certain things. And subhanAllah, we find that there are people that have taken up Muslim causes, and I use that word because we see them as Muslim causes. They're really human causes. Muslim causes, and they're not even Muslim. And subhanAllah, I'll give you this example. All of us, I would say, as Muslims, are somewhat passionate about the Palestinian cause. Obviously, when different things happen in the world, then we start to become distracted because our hearts are not big enough, unfortunately, sometimes, to care about Burma, Syria, Palestine, Somalia, Iraq, all at the same time. We can't do it for some reason. We have to be tuned into one at a time. But subhanAllah, the Palestinian cause is a cause that the Muslim community as a whole always demonstrates a special level of attention for it. Everyone cares about the Palestinian cause. Muslims always, before 9/11 and even after 9/11, maybe after 9/11 it got toned down a little bit, but the Muslim community has always been on the forefront of the Palestinian cause. And subhanAllah, if you read in these last 10 years in particular, or actually these last 12 years, you'll find that there are peace activists and people that have actually went to Palestine and stood up for the rights of the people over there that are not Muslim. And subhanAllah, one of those people is Rachel Corrie. And I don't know if anyone in here has read about Rachel Corrie. I know a few of you probably have, but Rachel Corrie, a 23-year-old white American activist, born and raised in the States, not Muslim, who actually went to Gaza with the International Solidarity Movement and stood in front of a bulldozer as it was demolishing a house in Gaza. Stood in front of a bulldozer, and protested that house being demolished. And subhanAllah, was killed in the process. What is it that drove her to do that? It was her humanity. It wasn't her iman. It was her humanity. And when we're called to iman, we're called to humanity too. There's something about us as human beings that those elements of compassion and justice have to be present inside of us. And subhanAllah, there's still people today. If you read about Harry Fear, a young man by the name of Harry Fear, that's been in Gaza for the last 4 years, doing work over there, a journalist who dedicated himself to that cause. That's humanity. That's just being a good person at the end of the day. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want you to forget that because of your iman. If anything, your iman takes a hit when you start to neglect your humanity. Your iman will take a hit when you start to neglect your humanity. And that's why Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu says in an authentic hadith, narrated in Muslim Imam Ahmad, that a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and complained بِقَسْوَةِ الْقَلْبِ, that his heart was hard. And Rasulullah ﷺ أَوْصَاهُ أَنْ يَمْسَحَ رَأْسَ الْيَتِيمِ. Rasulullah ﷺ said, you need to accompany an orphan and pat the head of an orphan so that you can, subhanAllah, soften your heart. By making yourself more human, you make yourself a better Muslim by default. And a lot of times we fail to take those causes seriously, and we fail to take them as our own, and we bicker about it, and when someone does something about it, we say, well, they weren't Muslim anyway. Yeah, subhanAllah, that's not what we were created to do. And there's a very profound hadith that I'll share with you all today. It's a hadith that's also narrated in Muslim Imam Ahmad with an authentic chain by Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who says that I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on a personal level. So it was just me and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they had him alone, they would ask him questions that were already addressed publicly, but they would want to get the secrets also. Right? So قُلْ لِي قَوْلًا يَنْفَعُنِي وَأَقْلِلْ. Give me some words that'll benefit me and make it short. This is a man who attends the khutbahs of the Prophet ﷺ and who hears the beneficial advice of the Prophet ﷺ all the time. But now I've got you to my own, just between me and you. Now I've got you on my own. Give me some advice, Ya Rasulullah. Give me some quick words that'll make it easy. Imagine if you met the most successful businessman in the world, the most successful CEO in the world. He might have given lectures on how to be successful. But hey, I've got you privately now. Can you give me some advice? Give me some secret advice. Give me a few words. So Abu Dharr radiallahu ta'ala anhu says that I was with the Prophet ﷺ and I went to him and I said, Ya Rasulullah, ماذا ينجي العبد من النار? What is it that takes away al-abd min an-nar? What is it that takes away the slave from hellfire? What's going to protect him from hellfire? Now obviously, Rasulullah ﷺ has addressed this pretty clearly. Allah Azza wa Jal has addressed this pretty clearly. But now private advice. And he responded to Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu and he said, Al-imanu billah. Belief in Allah. Simple as that. Right? Now, subhanAllah, it's a simple question, a simple answer, but Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu wants to squeeze this answer. He says, Ya Rasulullah, inna ma'al imani amala. Are there actions that accompany faith? Are there actions that accompany faith? What do we do then to accompany that faith? Rasulullah said, Yardah mimma razaqahullah. He spends from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to him. And no, this is not a fundraising khutbah. There's no fundraising at the end of the khutbah. Unfortunately, I know usually when you hear about sadaqah, it's got to be a fundraiser at the end. No, this is part of our iman. The first thing the Prophet ﷺ mentioned was he spends out of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to him. He puts his money where his mouth is. He shows his love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by spending on noble causes. And then Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu responds. He says, Ya Rasulullah, أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ فَقِيرًا. What if that person is poor? He doesn't have anything to spend with. So Rasulullah ﷺ responded, he said, يَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. That he should enjoin that which is good and forbid that which is evil. Enjoin that which is good and forbid that which is evil. You know what? Da'wah is free. You know, Amr bil Ma'ruf is free. You don't have to pay money to say something. You don't have to pay money to do something good in your society, to speak up. Right? يَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. This is all free. No one has an excuse not to do it unless he's under fear. Unless he's living under fear, and it's a legitimate fear, it's not just paranoia, and he really can't say anything. You know, I hear people all the time say, Sheikh, we can't talk about that because if we keep talking about that, then we're going to get a visit. And you're going to get a visit regardless if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed a visit for you. And if you stop speaking the truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will entrust you to those that you fear. Just speak. Talk. Allah didn't make you weak. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, مَنْ رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرٍ فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. Whoever sees an evil, let him change it with his hand. And if he can't do so, then with his tongue. And if he can't do so, then he should hate it with his heart. And that is ad'aful iman. That's the weakest form of faith. But you can't resort to that unless you can't do the first one or the second one. You can't change it with your hands, change it with your tongue. If you cannot change it with your tongue, then you can hate it in your heart. But you can't just hate it in your heart because you're afraid of letting your tongue loose. You're afraid of saying what's right, even though no one stopped you from saying what's right. No one stopped you from speaking up. So Rasulullah ﷺ said, يَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu responds. He's taking this conversation and broadening it as much as possible. He says, Ya Rasulullah, what if that person is weak? So he is living in fear. لا يستطيع أن يأمر بالمعروف وينهى عن المنكر. He cannot do أمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. He cannot enjoin good and forbid evil. He's stuck. Rasulullah ﷺ said, يصنع لأخرق. Very profound words, and they are so applicable to us here in the United States, by the way. Rasulullah ﷺ said, he should educate someone who can. He should teach someone who can. Al-akhraq is someone who's a jahil, who's ignorant, but he has the means. So go educate the influence maker. Go educate people of influence. Help people who can make a difference see the light, see the truth, so that they can do it then. Go behind the scenes and try to influence people in position to do the right things. SubhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ is giving us truly, a path to political and religious success. Employ those who can do good. Teach them. And Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu is still not satisfied with the answer. He says, Ya Rasulullah, أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ أَخْرَقَ أو إن كان جاهل. What if that person himself is ignorant? لا يستطيع أن يصنع لأخرق. He can't do anything for anyone. He cannot teach that person who's akhraq. He cannot do anything for that person. So far, he's poor, he's weak, and he's ignorant. And he's still carrying on this conversation. We know that this doesn't all apply to Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu, but he's trying to broaden the conversation. He said, يُعِينُ مَظْلُومًا. He should stand with one who's being wronged and oppressed. If you can't stop that oppression, at least offer some form of moral and emotional support to the one that's being oppressed. At least let them know that you're there for them. At least let them know, go to someone who you know is being wrong. Tell them, I'm making dua for you. Do you need me to, do you want to come to my house? Do you want to talk about it? At least stand with that person since you can't influence this situation. And subhanAllah, this is something that truly, we lack as Muslims. And I'm the first one who's guilty of this. A person has some issues in their life and no one even knows about it because no one asks about anyone. Rasulullah ﷺ, despite having the congregation that he had, noticed when anyone was missing. Where is that person? Where is the woman that was cleaning the masjid? Where is that man that brings his son around to play? Rasulullah ﷺ always noticed if someone was missing. And the Prophet ﷺ would go and ask about that person. Wallahi, we are guilty of this as a community. Not properly taking care of people, and we don't find out about the problems of a person until something dramatic happens, unfortunately. Standing with one who's being wronged. standing with one who's being oppressed. Giving someone a call. And on a global level, subhanAllah, I'll never forget this, wallahi. And I know that, we can have discussions all day long about whether or not, protesting in the street or demonstrations do any good. And there is no doubt that there are some elements sometimes that are un-Islamic. There is no doubt. I'm not denying that, so don't throw that on me. However, I remember when I went to Hajj the year after Gaza, and I met a person from Gaza in Hajj. And he came to me and he said, when he knew that I was from America, at first he thought I was just Palestinian. He said, where are you from? Where are you coming from? I told him from America. He said, subhanAllah, every time we wanted to give up, we looked at the TV and we saw millions of people all over the world standing in the street and supporting us. And that would make us volt. That would show us, what the world is with us. Even if it was a used container of clothes. We don't need clothes. SubhanAllah, what are we going to do wearing these clothes? But you know what? It showed us that people care about us. That there are people that are making dua for us. There are people that are rooting for us. And really, subhanAllah, that's why we should never belittle any effort. Sometimes I see people mock, there's something for Syrian relief and they're collecting clothes. Oh, they don't need clothes right now, brother. Don't belittle that good. Don't belittle. لا تحقر من المعروف شيئا. لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا. Never belittle any form of good. You don't know the effect of it. Anything you can do to show the one who's being oppressed that I'm in your corner, I'm with you, I'm standing with you. Whether it's on a local level or even on a global level. And we know that we are connected throughout the world now because of the internet and other types of means. Other means that have been given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now what does Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu respond? قال قلت يا رسول الله. I said to him, O Messenger of Allah, أرأيت إن كان مظلوما. What if he himself is oppressed? لا يستطيع أن يصنع شيئا. He can't do anything. He can't do anything. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he responded to Abu Dharr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And he said, يا أبا ذر ما تريد أن تترك في صاحبك من خير. You don't want to leave any form of good for your companion to do? All of these things. You mean to tell me he's completely incapable of all of these things? And you know what the Prophet ﷺ said? لِيُمْسِكَ أَذَاهُ عَنِ النَّاسِ. You can't do any good. You can't change anyone's situation. You can't support the one who's being affected by that situation. Make sure that you're not part of the problem. Make sure that you're not hurting people. Hold back and restrain your harm. And this is something that is consistent throughout our text. لا ضرر ولا ضرار. It's not only a hadith, it's a foundation, it's a fiqhi maxim, it's a foundation in our jurisprudence. There is no harm and no reciprocating of harm. من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خير أو ليصمت. Whoever believes in Allah on the last day, let him speak well or be quiet. You can't do anything good, make sure you don't do anything bad. What was the response of Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu? قال قلت يا رسول الله إذا فعل ذلك دخل الجنة. I said to him, O Messenger of Allah, if he did only that, will he enter Jannah? SubhanAllah, he just didn't harm anyone. He made sure that he didn't harm his environment or harm people. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded to Abu Dharr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And he said, O Abu Dharr, ما من مؤمن يطلب خصلة من هذه الخصال. There is no believer who takes any one of the things that I've mentioned, إلا أخذت بيده حتى أدخله الجنة. Except that on the day of judgment, I would take his hand until it enters him into paradise. SubhanAllah, can you imagine? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the gravity of what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, and what this deen is really all about. How did this conversation start off? This conversation started off as ماذا ينجي العبد من النار. What protects al-abd min al-nar? What protects the servant from hellfire? And look at how this conversation played out. And it shows you the priorities in our deen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those that are in support of our brothers and sisters. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to make us amongst those who are guilty of any shred of dhulm, any shred of transgression or oppression on the Day of Judgment. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to use us as tools for relieving others of oppression and bettering our environment around us and bettering our akhirah as a result. Allahumma ameen. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين والعاقبة للمتقين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على عبدك ورسولك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Dear brothers and sisters, in closing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us often about the traits of the prophets, the anbiya, that were beloved to Him and that should make them beloved to us. And subhanAllah, we find this deep discussion in Surah Maryam in particular, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا نَبِيًّا. Make mention in the book of Ibrahim. Verily he was a man of truth and a prophet. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes all of these anbiya, all of these prophets. And subhanAllah, notice one thing. Not a single prophet was just described as being a prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions their traits as He mentions their prophethood and as He mentions that they were entrusted with the risala, with the message. Not a single person's name was mentioned except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also praised one of their qualities. And that shows you that these prophets were not just people of divine revelation. They were people that supported the cause of many others. They were people that were known for their truthfulness, for their honesty. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before he became Rasulullah, he was as-sadiq al-amin. He was the honest, the trustworthy one. Before divine revelation told him to stand up for the poor, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the youngest person to take part in Hilf al-Fudul, in the League of the Just, to protect the rights of all individuals of that society. He was the youngest man there, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though he still did not receive revelation. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if I was to be called to that, even after Islam, I would still do it. I would still do it. And the Prophet ﷺ praised people that stood up for justice. Even the ones that were not Muslim, like Mut'im ibn Adi. Rasulullah ﷺ praised their sense of justice. And Rasulullah ﷺ said that he would work with them. He would stand up for those causes. And this gives us, and this is the take-home message that I hope all of us will take home, beyond obviously, wanting the Prophet ﷺ to hold our hands and enter us into Jannah with the Prophet ﷺ. Beyond that, our cause as Muslims can't just be da'wah. We can't just want to be great MSA presidents and great, and great imams or great masjid presidents or just have strong Islamic institutions for da'wah. There are causes other than da'wah that are implicitly also da'wah, that are part of us being Muslim. We are supposed to champion the causes of social justice for all people in our societies. We're supposed to champion those. We're not just supposed to raise people and say, make sure that you're good at doing da'wah. Doing da'wah is an integral part of our deen, and there are some things that make us just Muslim, like standing for people, like going to a homeless shelter, like taking care of refugees, like going to a food bank, like making sure that people's causes are being acknowledged and being validated, standing up for people's rights. If we continue to view ourselves as outsiders in this society, then we can't expect society to view us as anything but outsiders. And so our da'wah would be ineffective in the first place. Because as Imam al-Muzani rahimahullah said about the Prophet ﷺ, that his da'wah started before he even knew it. How profound of a statement is that? His da'wah sallallahu alaihi wasallam started before he even knew that it started. And it started with his husn al-khuluq, with his good character. He didn't know he was doing da'wah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala planned it that way. His character was giving him credibility, so that when he stood up and said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah, he wasn't just someone that came from nowhere and said, I'm here to save you from hellfire. The same person that was calling them and saying, I'm here to save you from hellfire, was the same one that saved them from poverty and oppression. Was the same one that stood for their affairs and their goodness in this world, so we can trust that he's standing for our goodness in the hereafter as well. We have to make sure that we understand this and we have this proper mentality of saving people, of standing for people's rights and standing for justice because we're Muslim. Not everything is a PR campaign. Not everything is just to get the cameras. That's not who we are. I remember in Hurricane Katrina relief, there were some Christian organizations that would send boxes and they would have Bible verses on the boxes, and I could see the looks on the faces of the victims and the evacuees when they would see those boxes. Like, really? This is disgusting. And they're Christians. We don't need a message right now, we need food. They were disgusted. How dare you put that Bible verse on the box while you're serving me food? I don't need that right now. I need food and drink. I need someone to take up my cause. And as Muslims, we're not like that. We do these things, yes, understanding they are da'wah, but at the same time, it's part of who we are as Muslims. It's part of our iman. It's what Khadija radiallahu anha said to the Prophet ﷺ, that Allah, la yukhzik Allahu abada, Allah will never forsake you, because إِنَّكَ لَتَصِلُ الرَّحِمِ, you are someone who upholds the ties of kinship, and who stands for the poor, honors the guest. That's why Khadija radiallahu anha said Allah would not disgrace her. And as a community, we become disgraced when we neglect those very things that Khadija radiallahu anha said Allah would not disgrace the Prophet ﷺ for. We become disgraced as a community. So we should all think, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to be used for good, that He uses us for His deen, that He uses us for da'wah and for upholding justice and truth, and that He allows us to leave a legacy with the people for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and benefit people for His sake. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma ighfir lil-mu'minina wal-mu'minat wal-muslimina wal-muslimat al-ahya'i minhum wal-amwat innaka sami'un qareebun mujeebu ad-da'awat. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا واعف عنا ولا تعذبنا ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها اللهم أصلح أحوال إخواننا المنكوبين في كل مكان اللهم عليك بأعدائك أعداء الدين اللهم أهلك الظالمين بالظالمين وأخرجنا من بينهم سالمين عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه على نعمائه يزد لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون وأقم الصلاة